So, the final story of the evening is Liz Ziemska's The Mushroom Queen. This extraordinary story has achieved a kind of trifecta. It first appeared in Tin House, a journal that pretty much all of us who write wants to get published in one day. And then it won a spot in this anthology, Best American Science Fiction and Fantasy. And then it won a Pushcart Prize. Yeah. So if I may coin a word, tetrafecta, it is now at Stories on Stage Davis. So way to go, Liz. It's been really wonderful for me to get to know Liz virtually over the months since we started arranging this event, and I want to thank her for making the trek up here from LA. And actually, Will Kaufman, our other Best American person, also came up from the LA area, as did Will Green, our musician. So the Southland is very well represented. Yes, Stories on Stage, maybe not so much from Davis. Anyway, I think that's all I need to say. Yes, so before Kelly Ogden takes the mic again to read The Mushroom Queen, I'd like to ask Karen back up to tell us a little bit about selecting this story for the Best American Anthology, and then I'll ask Liz to come up and tell us a little bit about her story before Kelly reads. Thank you.
Thank you. So Liz's story did function the way it was supposed to. I had no idea who had written it, and I had not seen it before. And when I saw Liz's name, I did not recognize the name. So in every way, she was a marvelous surprise. The minute I did see her name, I thought, okay, that's a writer I will be looking for in the future. That's a writer I will be paying attention to. And I have had the good fortune of reading the Mandelbrot story that Naomi mentioned earlier, and am feeling pretty confident that I made an excellent choice when I picked Liz. One of the things I love about her story is that I think in ways that we do not pay enough attention to, we live in a science fictional sort of world, and we are surrounded by actual creatures who are very science fictional in the ways that they behave, some of which, unfortunately, arise to positions of great power in the political arena, but the best of which operate almost entirely underground. And I'm going to let Liz talk about that maybe a little more.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you, Naomi, and thank you, Will. 10 years ago, I was a film agent, and one of my clients had directed a documentary about the environment called The 11th Hour, and I went to the party, and I got a tote bag. And in the tote bag was this book, which I have to bring up because the author, Paul Stamets, has been so kind to let me quote from it for my story. And I'm like, oh yeah, how mushrooms can help save the world. Fascinating. I put it on my shelf, and I didn't think about it for 7 years. During the 7 years, I was writing this ridiculously complicated novel about Russia, which now is cool. But it didn't wind up selling, and I was bereft, and I had nothing but like 125,000 words about Russia. So I signed up to the Tin House summer writing program thinking, well, I would have to create something to send to the workshop. And I pulled this book off the shelf and I started reading. And it kind of blew my mind because I knew about mushrooms because I like eating them, but I had no idea that actually we as mammals exist completely ignorant of our sort of parallel beings that are the mushrooms. And so I started reading, and I got almost like sci-fi freaked out. And one night I had a dream that I woke up from the bed in a dream, and it was the full moon, and I walked out on my lawn, and there was me. It was me, but I had like flawless skin that was like densely white, like a mushroom cap, except for there was a little bit of dirt clinging to my cheek, my doppelganger's cheek. So I reached over and I brushed it off her cheek, and she grabbed me by the hand and she threw me into the ground, and I felt myself going down the rabbit hole, literally. And this became The Mushroom Queen. So the moral of the story is you never know where your story's going to come from, and also don't give up the writing. So.
The Mushroom Queen. It's the middle of the night and the woman can't sleep. Perhaps it's the full moon or the full moon, the kind of moon that keeps you awake thinking stupid thoughts. The man lies beside her, generating too much heat. There's a small brown dog nestled into her armpit. A white dog sleeps at her feet. She's wedged in like a crooked tooth. For about an hour now, she has been thinking about the two races of man. One race is very, very slow. They crawl upon the earth like slugs, leaving silvery slime trails wherever they go. The other is very, very fast, about as fast as electrons. And when they pass by, they leave a radiant residue, though you can never be sure if you've actually seen them or if there's a smudge on your glasses picking up the light in a funny way. The two races live side by side, completely unaware of each other, sucking on the same earth. But on the night of the full moon, a special moon that occurs once per decade, or every 9.3 years to be exact, when the moon rise lag is equal to the moon set lag, causing great upheavals of the deep, cold waters of the Pacific Ocean, the slow race can sometimes catch up to the fast race. All of this is just nonsense, of course. It's the duration that's the important thing here. 9.3 years is a long time to be married. The woman sighs, digs her toes into the fur of the white dog. She looks out the sliding glass doors at the garden in moonlight. They still don't have curtains. A tiny, mournful cry reaches her through the partially open door. Some small furred thing losing its life out beyond the chicken wire fence and the scrub grass, where the man keeps the pile of lumber that once was the trellis under which they were married. A bit of white flashes by in her peripheral vision, a flap of cloth, then disappears behind the farthest clump of jade plant. Kicking off the blankets, the woman rolls carefully from the bed without disturbing the dogs and the man. She shakes a sweater from a pile of clothing the man has left on the floor, where the jeans and underwear he shucked off still retain his shape, as if his body had dematerialized. She walks to the door and looks out. It's the one thing they had agreed on. A luxury, but well worth it. The lawn, the decorative clumps of shrubbery, the drooping leaves of the Mexican bamboo, the flax. And then she sees it again. A figure in white moving very quickly across the grass, diving behind the nearest jade plant. It is coming closer to the house, where the dogs and the man lie paralyzed in sleep. The woman slides the glass door open wider and steps out onto the deck, closing the door behind her so the dogs won't get out. She stands there under the moonlight. The moon is past its highest point. She can feel her energy weakening. She thinks again of the two races of man. What if the fast race can sometimes clean up the messes of the slow? Her toes grip the worn redwood boards. She steps off the deck onto the lawn. What is wrong with her marriage anyway? It's nothing she can point to. No crimes, no infidelities, some petty cruelty in times of stress, but who isn't guilty of that? Nevertheless, she feels restless, bored, slow. For months now, she's been fantasizing about being more than she is, but it isn't coming true. What if she could step into the fast, fast world without being missed? What she wants now, more than anything, is a placeholder, someone to keep her life intact while she goes on a little reconnaissance trip. The woman reaches the jade plant just as another woman steps out to face her. They are nearly identical, mirror images, though the doppelganger, as befits a creature of the moonlight, is more glamorous looking than her sun-fattened twin. Even so, to examine herself three-dimensionally is unnerving. Mirrors don't tell half the story. The skin of the other is beaded with tiny water droplets, her white cotton nightgown translucent with moisture. The woman reaches out to touch her, but just as she's about to make contact, the other woman grabs her by the throat and tosses her into the jade plant. Our woman is gone. Her double crosses the lawn, steps onto the deck, slides open the door, dries her feet on the pile of discarded clothes, and climbs into bed. The big white dog lifts his head and wags his tail. Then he stops, sits up, and looks again. He's confused. His eyes tell him one thing, but his nose, the more reliable source, tells him another. She may look like his beloved mistress, but she smells definitively like rabbits. There is nothing the white dog loves more than killing rabbits. He wags his tail again. The woman sleeps. Maybe his nose is wrong. He's getting old, almost 6, though not very old for his breed. He has another 6 years in him. He can feel it, but things are starting to break down. He can't bank the curves like he used to while chasing the neighbor's cat off the lawn. The woman digs her toes into his fur, like the other one had done. She turns onto her side, pulls the blanket up to her chin, tucks the brown dog, that small, furry shithead, into the curve of her body, like the other woman had always done. Everything checks out, except for the strange straw and dandelion smell of rabbits. Perhaps, like his hips, his nose is starting to go. Our woman, the original, sinks into the soft, moist ground at the base of the jade plant, terrified. She tries to scream, but soil fills her mouth. She opens her eyes, but there is nothing but darkness, no air, no sound. The world is extinguished, and yet she lives on, packed in with the weight of the earth. No longer merely slow, she is immobile. The small brown dog knows, of course, that the creature in bed with him is not his beloved mistress, but he also realizes that it would be dangerous to let on that she knows. This woman is so much a copy of his woman that it obviously took a great deal of effort to pull off the stunt, and great effort usually comes with great desire. The small dog knows there's nothing more dangerous in the world than desire. He also knows that to raise an alarm about this fake would be to risk the life of his true mistress, who is obviously being held captive somewhere. Well, what he needs to do now is convince this dim-witted white brute to stop sniffing her like she's some kind of rabbit he'd like to snatch up in his teeth and shake to death. But this fake woman doesn't smell like rabbits. She smells like rabbit poo. Some fun facts about fungus, the most prevalent organism on the planet. About 250 million years ago, a meteorite struck down around Siberia, creating tidal waves, lava flows, hot gases, and searing winds. The land grew dark under a cloud of debris, causing 90% of its species to die out. Fungus inherited the earth. Millions of years ago, we shared a common ancestor with fungi. Man is just a branch off the fungal evolutionary tree. As animals emerged from the water, they developed a dense layer of cells to prevent the loss of moisture. Fungi, on the other hand, solved the problem of moisture retention by going underground. Mycelium, a web-like mass of tiny branching threads containing one or more fungal cells surrounded by a tubular wall, is the stuff that grows, spreads out, running through every cubic centimeter of soil in the world. Every time you step on a soccer field, a forest, a suburban lawn, you walk upon thousands of sentient cells that are able to communicate with one another using chemical messengers. Mycelium helps to heal and steer the ecosystem, recycling waste into soil. Constantly moving, mycelium can travel several inches a day. Experiments in Japan have shown slime molds successfully navigating a food maze, choosing the shortest distance between 2 points, disregarding dead ends. Mushrooms are the fruiting bodies, the reproductive organs of mycelium. They feed on rotting things, like rabbit poo and troubled relationships. The Mushroom Queen was tired of living underground. She can assume any form. Her skin is nicer than human skin, firm and white, and it has no pores, only spores. Because mushrooms are self-propagating, which can get pretty lonely. So she deposed herself and came to the woman's house from the east, traveling west along the shore of a wide green river, over the Appalachians, beneath the Great Lakes, flowing right across the vast Midwestern plains. She was born over a century ago in the unkempt garden of a red brick house. That is where our woman arrives now. Sucked across the country and extruded from the ground beneath a trellis of tangled vines that sprout purple flowers in the summer. They have switched places, the discontent of one calling to the desire of the other. Nature abhors a vacuum. The man thinks this woman is an improvement over the other. He does not know there's been a switch, only a sudden, inexplainable change in personality. This woman's more pliable than the other, more eager. The other one never wanted to make love in the morning. As he sinks his fingers into her flesh and buries his face into her dark curls, he falls in love with her all over again. The Mushroom Queen has gills behind her ears, but the man doesn't seem to notice. He delights in her damp, earthy scent, her luminous whiteness, the way her body forms around his. She opens her mouth to laugh at his jokes, but no sound comes out. Already the walls are covered in green slime. At breakfast, the man makes the usual: boiled eggs, toast, a wedge of brie, apricot jam, and good strong oolong tea. The Mushroom Queen sniffs the brie with its waxy casing of Penicillium camemberti. It wouldn't do to eat a distant cousin, so she pushes it aside. "You love brie," says the man. The Mushroom Queen shrugs. "Maybe you're pregnant." A grin spreads across his face. She laughs her soundless laugh. If the Mushroom Queen wanted to propagate, all she would have to do is point a finger and a mushroom would bud out of its tip. She pushes her egg away, too fresh. "What can I get you instead?" says the man. The contents of the compost bin would be nice, thinks the Mushroom Queen. She would like to take the bin to the guest room where it is dark and damp, spread it out on the duvet, and roll around in the coffee grounds, potato peels, and carrot tops. But that wouldn't be good for their relationship. This is her first time imitating human form, and the Mushroom Queen is not very good at it. One breast has come out larger than the other, and she forgot to grow earlobes. What will she do with all the earrings the other woman owns? Her hair moves by itself, as if animated by a celestial wind. For, unlike human hair, which is just dead keratin, the hair of the Mushroom Queen is alive, mycelium embedded with loam to make it black. Speech is difficult, though not impossible. Moving air through a mushroom is no problem. Just look at the spore dispersal of the Calvacia gigantea, the giant puffball. It is the tone modulation she can't get right. Much easier to nod and smile. The man does all the talking anyway. The Mushroom Queen bathes in the normal way when the man wants to take a bath with her, but she doesn't feel fully clean in water. Later that afternoon, while he's napping, she goes out into the garden and tears open a bag of premium potting soil, rubs herself down beneath the shade of the tree ferns. Our woman's body is pressed down through a root sieve, releasing the 100 trillion cells of her symbiotic microbiome into the soil. They wriggle away in search of a new host. What's left of her, the approximately 37.2 trillion cells that had once been organized into brain, liver, eyeballs, belly button, are absorbed by the tube-like hypha of the North American mycelium web and fanned out across the garden. In her newly dematerialized state, she is simultaneously nowhere and everywhere. But this is just an illusion, a temporary form of vertigo brought on by the sudden vastness of her being. In reality, she covers a little less than 3 square acres, one edge dangling in the cool green waters of the Hudson, the other pushed up against the crumbling blacktop of Route 9. A red brick house squats on her chest like a poorly digested meal. There's a maple tree growing out of her forehead, its flame-colored leaves the color of her panic. Days pass. At night, the mist rises from the Pacific, rolls up the cliff, and settles around the house, muffling it from the street noise in the neighboring houses. One morning, when the dogs step out, they find the lawn covered in mushrooms. The woman used to come out with a weed puller and scoop out each fungus by the root, afraid the dogs would eat them. The dogs sniff the ground beneath the nearest jade plant. There's something lingering among the watery stems of the succulent, a sad, familiar scent of laundry detergent and lemon verbena hand lotion. What does the Mushroom Queen end up eating? Fermented things like pickles, soy sauce drunk directly from the bottle, kimchi, forgotten packages of ham gone slippery with pink goo, old strawberries melting into their green plastic basket, glued together by a whitish fur. She drinks beer, endless bottles of beer, though the man is surprised. The other woman never touched alcohol. Empty calories, she called it, but the Mushroom Queen never gains weight, only biomass. How does the Mushroom Queen feel about the dogs? They're competitors for the rabbit pellets. And they don't give anything back, their own waste, too rich in erythrocytes from the meat they eat to grow mushrooms. And the dogs are suspicious of her, particularly the little one. It's a good thing they can't speak. The man ignores them. He doesn't even feed them. Their leashes hang limply from the doorknob. The Mushroom Queen can't risk walking them, can't expose herself to the neighbors, not knowing their names. Besotted with the myth of personhood, humans have names. Mushrooms have no such cult of personality. Nothing banishes lethargy like a well-defined villain. Our woman has condensed herself from 3 acres down to the size of the lawn in her own backyard, still flat and thin enough to move through the soil without having to worry about snagging on telephone poles and sewage pipes. She is heading west, against the Earth's rotation, gliding through the rich, dark loam of the Hudson River Valley like a manta ray swimming through water. She is heading home. Never mind that home is the place from which she had recently dreamed of escaping. The small dog leads the white dog on a tour of the woman's closet to check the shoes, but not one pair is missing, not even the pale blue sneakers she wore when she walked them. She had taken them on endless loops around the neighborhood, making sure to pass by the little parking lot where the tourists stop to gawk at the cliffs above the ocean, and also to admire the dogs, and by extension, the woman. She needed that daily dose. Born into darkness, the Mushroom Queen cannot sleep at night. She wanders the house, picking up objects at random, trying to guess their purpose. There are wedding photographs on the piano, the man and the woman surrounded by smiling friends and children playing musical instruments. The man is ducking under colorful streamers as the wedding party braids them around a maypole. The bride looks young and happy in her butterfly-embroidered skirt. The Mushroom Queen wants to experience love. That's why she came here in the first place. But she also wants to be known. She has learned about the distinction from the books in the basement of the red brick house. Seeping into soggy cardboard boxes, she consumed page after page of Romeo and Juliet, Pride and Prejudice, Wuthering Heights, even Gone with the Wind, and realized that to be loved is not the same as to be known. Karenin loved his wife, Anna, in his own way, but he did not know her. How is the Mushroom Queen going to get the man to see her clearly, to fall in love with her without the use of deception? The small dog is angry with the white dog. More than once he has come upon them in the hallway, the big white idiot lying on his back, paws in the air, tongue lolling out of his big stupid grin, writhing under the hands of the Mushroom Queen as she scratches the fur of his belly. Disgusting. The small dog follows the imposter as the man leads her onto the lawn, to the hidden bower where he and the real woman used to make love in the afternoon. He watches from behind the acacia tree. He had seen before how the man leaned over the original, pumping the essence out of her. He had seen it, but what could he do? The Mushroom Queen is not depleted by the man's attentions. Each day, she grows stronger. Even now, as the man leans over her, she arches her neck, her eyes roll back until only the whites are visible, her mushroom brown lips split apart in a silent yawl of pleasure. Our woman trails the rains as they sweep across the continent. By early August, she's made it all the way to the eastern slopes of the Rocky Mountains. She climbs the foothills, the land rising and falling like a roller coaster. At 5,000 feet, she reaches a broad, high meadow sheltered from the winds by an aspen grove. She weaves in through the orange paintbrush and chamomile, primrose, fireweed, and horse mint. The air is cool and thin, the soil moist and rich. It would be lovely to settle down in this place, but vengeance keeps her moving. A jagged wall of granite rises above her, 100 times more daunting than the Appalachians. Up ahead is the timberline, where there are no trees, no soil, and very little water. She hunkers down among the lupins, pushing up mushrooms as she contemplates her next move. The man would have liked the paradox of a mushroom attempting to scale a mountain. A paradigm shift is what you need, he would have said. They used to be good at playing games with words. It's what brought them together in the first place. But over time, they learned that there are only so many stories to tell, and only so many ways to tell them. And in the end, silence is better. At least now, if she made it home alive, they will have something new to talk about. The Mushroom Queen's attention is beginning to wander. There's a hollow spot under the floor near the bookshelf where the termites have devoured an entire wooden slat. Rats gnaw all night long in the crawl space above the bed. The garage roof sinks in the middle like a sway-backed horse. Pine roots have buckled the concrete driveway. Silverfish scuttle among the cutlery. The house is calling to her, and she has no choice but to respond. After all, she is a saprophyte, a primary decomposer of twigs, grass, stumps, logs, and other dead things. It's what she does. It's nothing personal. Besides, human love tasted so much better on the page. Already, her hypha are slipping in between the man's cells, prying them apart. Soon, she will dissolve him. The dogs are next. For now, their abundant furs kept them safe, that and their reflexes. But how long can they dodge her sticky threads? The Mushroom Queen has stopped feeding them, hoping to slow them down. They are starving, growing weaker by the day. Even the rabbits have left the lawn. Unloved, unbrushed, his belly empty, the small dog fills his days with happy memories. Like laundry day, when the woman used to dump the fresh load onto the bed and drop the small dog into the heap so he could root and dig and roll around in the warm, fragrant cloth. No one does laundry now that the woman is gone. The dishes go unwashed, the floor is unswept. Without the woman's constant ministrations, the walls themselves are caving in. Back at the timberline, beetles arrive and land on the woman's mushroom caps, burrowing deeply into her soft pink flesh, piercing through into her spore-rich underlayer. Another rainstorm comes and the beetles are picked up by the wind. Up and over the mountain they fly, spores clinging to their legs and wings. They settle down near Grand Junction, Colorado, depositing her spores onto the ground as they scuttle away into the fields. She sinks into the mulch and germinates a fresh new webbing of mycelium. Reborn, she waits a few more days to see how many more of her progeny will make the crossing. By early September, she's half her size, but twice as determined. Hugging the Colorado River all the way to the California border, our woman enters the Imperial Valley. Shimmying along irrigation canals, she runs her mycelium under fields of cabbages and cantaloupe, sucking up life-giving nitrogen as she fans up and out into San Bernardino County. From there, she hops lawns all the way to Point Doom. The Mushroom Queen has established a mycelial perimeter around the house, extending from the Pacific Coast Highway to the very edge of the cliff above the Pacific Ocean. Through the septal pores of her naked hypha tips, she is aware of her rival's imminent approach. The Mushroom Queen enters the kitchen in black galoshes. She puts on a pair of purple rubber gloves, steps into a couple of trash bags, making sure to tape the plastic securely at the wrists and the ankles, and wraps several yards of cling wrap around her head and neck. Then she begins to whip up a batch of poison. The house, the man, the dogs, they all belong to her now. She is not willing to share them. Giddy, triumphant, our woman breaks through the cracked terracotta patio and surges under the grass, following the lawnmower as the man, recklessly barefoot, paces out wide, even rows. The Mushroom Queen walks behind him in her battle gear, a bottle of viscous liquid attached to the garden hose, saturating the lawn in the path created by the mower. Our woman can taste the individual ingredients: olive oil, baking soda, apple cider vinegar. Such wholesome things. How often had she used them herself? But now they are dissolving her. She sinks down in through the sod, then the 3 inches of trucked-in dirt, the chicken wire gopher barrier, and finally settles into the sand and clay that are the true soils of this land. A fleeting thought crosses her mind. Without the artificial lawn, the fertilizer, the monumental water bills, all things that she and her husband fussed over together, the Mushroom Queen could never have gained a foothold in their lives, because nothing grows in clay and sand, not even fungus. Clinging to the underside of the mulch layer, the woman crawls all the way to the back and takes shelter in the shade of the disassembled trellis. Our woman tries to will herself back into human shape, but it's no good. She lacks the skill, and furthermore, she can no longer remember what she looked like. The Mushroom Queen, as she could see despite the many layers of saran wrap and hefty cinch sacks, doesn't look very human anymore. Her forehead bulges in the middle from the pressure of the cap. Her body has grown cylindrical, stem-like, but love is blind. How can she fight the Mushroom Queen if she can't get by the poisoned lawn? Perhaps she could enlist the aid of some parasitic bacteria? But that might harm the dogs and the man, and really she's never been the kind of person to up the ante out of stubbornness until everything around her lies in ruins. And then she remembers something she heard as she was driven from the lawn. Something whispered to her by the onychomycosis fungus growing on the 3rd toe of the man's left foot. The man knows there's been a switch. He knows, and he does not miss her at all. The fight goes out of her completely. She shrinks a little bit further into herself, the sand and clay robbing her mycelium of precious fluids. If she stays here a moment longer, she'll have to wait until the spring rains to make her escape. Where will she go? Back to the meadow with the primrose and chamomile? Back to the garden behind the red brick house with its ancient loamy soil? What had once been a prison now seems like Elysium. And to be completely honest, she doesn't blame the man. Her vanity is bruised, but maybe things are as they should be. She does not miss her human form. She likes her new spread-out state, her very own magic carpet. She can go anywhere. She had longed to join the fast race, but now instead she's joined the eternal race. Fungus will survive the destruction of the environment, the melting of the polar ice caps, the rising of the waters. Fungus will survive until the earth falls into the sun, and maybe even after. She's gotten what she wanted. Well, almost. She does not blame the white dog for betraying her with the Mushroom Queen. After all, he's just a dog. Uncomplicated, happy-go-lucky, like the man, a love pig. But the small dog is different. She has always suspected that he isn't a dog at all, but a demoted human soul sent back to Earth in a fursuit to atone for his sins. The small dog can be made to understand. She has a plan, but it's risky, given her limited skills as a relatively new fungus. But what are her choices? The Mushroom Queen is distracted with the man, but eventually she'll turn the dogs into soil. At least if the woman can transform them, just as she has been transformed, digest their extracellular matrix, carefully separate their cells, and braid them into her mycelium, they can be together. Under the jade plant where she first entered the soil, among the lizards and bees, our woman spins out fresh strands of mycelium and begins weaving a mat, a raft, a lure. The small dog walks over to the nearest clump of jade plant. Shaky with hunger, he lifts his leg against the plump green leaves, and that's when he sees them. 3 little mushrooms growing out of the lawn at the base of the plant. They're pink and tender, with snug-fitting egg-shaped caps, arranged in an arc like the tips of a woman's fingers. Those familiar pink fingers that used to offer little bits of cheese, then reach for the tuft of hair that grows out of his head and scratch and scratch and scratch until he couldn't take it anymore. He can picture his mistress standing on tiptoe somewhere underground, reaching and reaching for the surface, only her fingertips breaking through to the mist-dampened air. He starts digging frantically, trying to get her out before she suffocates, soil flying around him, clinging to his russet fur, but there are no fingers beneath the tips, no hand outstretched, no woman, just mushrooms. He sighs, a deep, shuddering, doggy sigh. She's never coming back, his beloved mistress. He'll never see her again. No one misses her but him. Despondent, he opens his small, sharp-fanged mouth and eats the mushrooms one by one until there's nothing left but a dug-out scar of earth at the base of the jade plant. Thank you.